yeah, so,
I think it's right before election day.
I know, so we can be up early,
Oh, God, yes.
except everybody's already
Good, you? Oh my gosh. Do you know where you picked it up? I had it once, and I got it at the Y.
Deal with it. That wasn't too bad.
So what is common law?
I love this one. I ordered it online through like an Etsy. Yes, I love this.
It really helps you.
I'll take some Republicans with me.
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Lincoln. My name is Charlie Ahern. I am a worship associate of this church. Over the last few years, the way we have met has often changed, but whether in person, on Zoom, or on a YouTube live stream, or some other way we cannot yet imagine, worshiping together is a chance to deepen our connection with the sources of meaning in our lives and to proclaim who we are and what we are about, throwing open the doors of our congregation and proclaiming the radical love and welcome that is at the heart of our faith. At this time, Mary Kay Stillwell from the Board of Trustees would like to offer a welcome and give us a few announcements.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Excuse me. I want to offer a few announcements and a special welcome first to all those of you who are joining us for the first time. Welcome and come back. I have a few announcements to share as our church community extends beyond Sunday worship. You may have noticed when you walked in the front door that there's a collection barrel in front of the office window for hygiene products that we'll be collecting through next Sunday, October 27th. More details are in the newsletter, and the suggested items are near the barrel and also taped on the side of the barrel. Congratulations to Reverend Kimberly Davis, who has taken a ministerial position outside Baltimore. Kimberly ends her affiliation with the Unitarian Church of Lincoln. She was our community minister. Mark your calendars for our next big fundraising events. Handmade Harvest will be here November 8th and 9th. Many of our members and friends will be selling their original arts and crafts. There will also be food and a raffle. Join us. So this morning it's my turn to share with you why I pledge. So here it goes with just a few of the reasons. I come from a tradition of social action. The small Catholic liberal arts college I attended was run by a group of nuns who were activists. The college was near Leavenworth, Kansas, so they did a lot of work both in the prisons and helping spouses and children visit their inmates who were incarcerated. They offered a literacy program there, and they were also working to change the church. This was the 60s, and the Archbishop was often reprimanding them for what they were doing. And while I left the church and the dogma behind, and the hierarchy, I followed the nuns who had become my role models for social action. We had lived in Lincoln about 20 years before I joined. I had heard in passing about the Unitarian Church, first from Ted Kuzer, who used to come to the church when he lived in Lincoln. He said he liked to sit with people who were looking in the same direction as he was. You'd think I would be, my curiosity would be piqued by that. But I thought Unitarian meant that it was one part of the argument, whether God was in one person or three, and I just wasn't interested in looking in either of those directions. So I learned quite a bit about the church through my husband Frank's research, mainly the first peace movement here in Lincoln. Reverend Arthur Weatherly and C.A. Sorensen were prime movers. I entered this church for the first time when Frank gave a paper on Weatherly. When I joined the local branch of the NAACP, which Weatherly had helped found, I found members of the church, already members in the NAACP. So I'm a relatively new member. We joined March 1st, 2018. I was looking for community. Not long after we joined, Oscar asked me to join the Worship Associates. In the Social Issues Book Club, the relationships I formed there are still at least as important as the issues that we read about. Beloved Conversations Within offered an opportunity for me to examine my own biases in a very personal way. And if you haven't taken the program, I urge you to do so. It's really faith development at its best. On the way to drafting a land acknowledgement with the congregation, our first summer Indigenous programming brought me back to the broader community work with Indigenous and settler folks. Our talking circles, especially those after the films, offered another kind of faith development. And now, Justice in Action is a wider swath of the Lincoln community with whom to form relationships as we work together for justice and equity to strengthen our city and county. All this good work takes money. Many years ago, I heard Margaret Mead speak at the Press Club in New York City. She was speaking about what anthropology has to teach modern society. She said something to the effect that we need to keep in mind that a small group of caring individuals working within a larger tribe can change that tribe forever. The UCL is my caring group within my larger tribe, and I pledge to put my money where my heart is. Thank you.
The Unitarian Church of Lincoln aspires to be a loving community, uniting reason with spiritual exploration to transform ourselves and the world. We have a big vision here, and we know that creating a loving community begins with welcome. So whether it is your first time here or your 500th, if you came here heartbroken or hopeful, whatever your age, gender, skin color, whomever you love, you are welcome here. As we enter into worship, take a moment to center yourself in this place. Find a comfortable place with your body. Please take a few deep breaths. So now I would ask you to join me in the responsive reading, No One is Outside the Circle of Love, by Susan Frederick Gray and Erica Hewitt. We know that hurt moves through the world, perpetrated by action, inaction, and indifference. Our values call us to live in the reality of the heartbreak of the world, remembering that we who are Unitarian Universalists not only affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, we also affirm the inherent wholeness of every being, despite apparent brokenness. No one is outside the circle of love. We know that things break or break down, promises, friendship, sobriety, hope, communication. This breaking happens because our human hearts and our very institutions are frail and imperfect. We make mistakes. Life is messy. No one is outside the circle of love. With compassion as our guide, we seek the well-being of all people. We seek to dismantle systems of oppression that undermined our collective humanity. We believe that we're here to guide one another toward love. No matter how fractured we are or once were, we can make whole people of ourselves. We are whole at our core because of the great, unnameable, sometimes inconceivable love in which we live. I think I was supposed to read something. All right. Chalice lighting, yes. The chalice lighting today is Dance of Fire, Dance of Transition by the Reverend Gretchen Woods. As we kindle the flame of our spiritual community, let us pay attention to the dance of its fire. It is not static, it does not stay the same. It ebbs and flows in spontaneous patterns of light and shade. May we find our way as a congregation through this dance of transition with like spontaneity, responsiveness, and warmth. Please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me.
If anyone would like to come forward for the story, you can do so now. Our story today is called The Almond Tree, and it's from Ancient Stories for Modern Times by Faye Morganson and adapted by Catherine Farmer Loya, and further adapted by me. Talia's face was like a complicated map, full of ridges and wrinkles. Her back was bent over, and when she walked, she shuffled. Her hair was quite white these days, and she was tired more often than not. Still, she had a twinkle in her eye, and she always had a kind word for her neighbors, her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. She spent most of her days in her rocking chair, looking out over her garden. And if she had a visitor, she'd share memories of the good old days. When she was alone, she'd remember to herself, and now and then she'd hum a little or wiggle her fingers. It was during one of those mornings alone that Talia surprised herself by coming up with an ambitious decision. She made a phone call, and a few hours later, when the doorbell rang, the delivery man was patient while she slowly shuffled her way to the door. She directed him to carry the very tall, skinny parcel he had brought to a bare corner of the garden, and he kindly helped her find the garden spade and pull a lawn chair over. And then she paid him and waved him off. Slowly, very slowly, she dug a big hole in the ground. It was hard work, and now and then she'd sit on the lawn chair to take a break. But she got back up several times until eventually the hole was just the right size. She unwrapped the bottom of the tall, skinny parcel and took it out of its container, and then slowly, very slowly, she shuffled and rotated it into the hole. Kerplunk. She sat back down to inspect it and was satisfied. And slowly, very slowly, she began to push the dirt back into the hole all around the bottom of the parcel. And that, too, was hard work. Over and again, when she got tired, she sat down on the lawn chair to take a break, and then she got back up, and finally, she was finished. She unwrapped that tall, skinny parcel, and there it was. You've probably guessed. A beautiful sapling tree. And she sat down once again to admire it. She was tired. She had worked hard. Her sweat, her energy, her love, her heart went into that work. And about then, her neighbor arrived home and poked her head over the fence, and she looked alarmed and said, "Talia, you be careful. What are you doing planting a tree? Ridiculous. Someone your age. Is it an almond tree? It won't produce almonds for years." Talia laughed, and as she pointed to a very tall tree in the opposite corner of her garden, some of its branches were broken right off, others were bent with age. Most of them were bare, even though it was the middle of spring. She said, "I am like that old almond tree. My great-grandmother planted it. I loved to climb it when I was a little girl. Its branches were broad and strong, and I felt safe there. And then when I was a young woman, I picked some of its delicate pink blossoms and decorated my hair with them. I think that is perhaps how my husband came to notice me." The neighbor began to smile. As usual, there was no stopping Talia or her story. When I was a young mother, I picked the almonds, roasted them to perfection, and served them to my family. And when I became a grandmother, I rested in the shade of the almond tree. And now I am a great-grandmother. Talia was looking very dreamy as she continued. "Mostly, I'm happy with my life. But a little while ago, as I was sitting looking out into my garden, I realized that I had never planted a tree. It just didn't seem right. I have great-grandchildren." "Great-grandchildren?" asked the neighbor. Talia exclaimed, "Yes, they need an almond tree too." "Of course," laughed the neighbor. As she thought about Talia and her story, she pledged herself to do something for her own great-grandchildren too, even though she didn't yet have any. "I wonder what that will be. Perhaps she will also plant a tree." And as for Talia, after planting the tree, she returned to her rocking chair to look out her window and smile. She knew in her heart that she would never taste the almonds produced by that tree. She'd never get to see her great-grandchildren play among the shade it would create or upon the large branches. She'd never know how deep or far the roots would grow, and yet because she had planted it, she could believe in the dreams that the future could hold. So what is it that you will leave for the next generation? The Unitarian Church of Lincoln is still in the midst of our pledge drive. And as you think about your giving to the church, please keep this in mind. Not only are you pledging for this year and all that we are needing to sustain our community in this unique time, but also how our messages, our values, all we do with Sunday school and education prepare our church community and our children for the future of Unitarian Universalism. What fruits of our labor now will our children see in years to come? And that is the end of our story. But on that note, after the service today, we have an open house back in the Sunday school area where we will have cookies and popcorn, and I invite you to come see our brand new classrooms and how we are doing programming these days. So I hope that you'll come by and check it out. So the children are now dismissed to their classes.
Hi, everybody. Love that idea of planting seeds, don't you? Especially the older we get, plant those seeds. So we don't do a lot of ritual in this church, but this is a ritual, and everybody online, I would love for you to participate too, because this takes a village. So, as we prepare for the next chapter of our congregational life, we welcome into our community Reverend A.J. Galazin, right, as our interim senior minister. I invite you to rise in body or spirit as together we commit to our relationship of shared ministry. So will everybody participate by reading and committing to this together? We welcome you as our interim senior minister during this time of transition, mindful of our free religious heritage and of the history and promise of this congregation. We look to you for moral leadership, religious insight, learned wisdom, and spiritual guidance. Will you walk with us in the paths of health, wholeness, and service to the best of your ability?
I will.
Will you help us deepen our sense of identity as a congregation and commitment to it, that we may be ready to enter into a mutually nourishing covenant with our next fall minister?
I will. As an interim minister, my primary task is to help prepare you for your next chapter of ministry. I commit to focus on your strengths as individuals and as a congregation. I promise also to be open and candid, sharing my understandings with respect and love. I promise to listen deeply to your perspectives and to welcome the transformational power of genuine dialogue. Will you commit also to being in this way of relationship?
We will. We pledge to remain in honest and open communication with you. When we disagree, as no doubt we will, we commit to doing so clearly and directly, treating you ethically and with the same respect with which we want to be treated ourselves.
I ask you to remember that I am not the Reverend Oscar Sinclair, nor am I called to fill his shoes. Each minister brings different gifts and strengths, and over time, they weave richness into the tapestry of congregational life. At this time of beginning, I acknowledge that familiar patterns are important to you, and I ask you to be open to the possibilities of the new. I will work and play with you, laugh and probably cry with you. I promise to be fully engaged, and then, when our work is through, to leave so that your next chapter of shared ministry may begin. Will you meet me in this partnership?
We will. We will do our best to value your strengths and not expect you to be someone other than who you are. We honor your need for regular rest and renewal if you are to serve us well. Believing that the ministry of the Unitarian Church of Lincoln is the work of us all, we pledge to bring our gifts and strengths to this partnership, to share our resources, and to work with you for the good of the congregation during this interim period. With these words, our shared work is begun. Woo!
Turn the page. Will you join me now in a time of prayer and meditation? And our meditation this morning is from Kathy Fuson Hurt. In order to get out, I must go through. There is no other way. No other way? But there must be another way. An easier path, a well-lit road. I cast about, scan the horizon. No other way. The way out is the way through. The way through is the way hard, beset, behind and before, a heavy hand laid upon me. Pass one trial, meet another. Leap one hurdle, run against another. No turning back, no detours, no other way. Lord, how long? As long as it takes to get me there. Going down to go up. Approaching heaven via hell. No other way. The only way out is through. May it be so, and amen.
Leaning into the Curves by Gary Kowalski. A few years back, I took a safety course and bought myself an old Honda 450cc Nighthawk. Riding a motorcycle is very different from driving a car, and not much like riding a bicycle. Cornering requires something called counter steering, which is just as counterintuitive as it sounds. But the trickiest maneuver involves the eyes. Instead of looking where you're headed, you have to look far ahead down the road. I lost my place here. To where you want to be. Focus your attention on the obstacle immediately in front of your path, a pothole, for instance, and the bike virtually steers itself into harm's way. But look beyond the danger. Look toward the next curve in the road, and the motorcycle again almost magically directs itself to the place you want to go. There's obviously a lesson here for congregations. Highlight your problems: a budget deficit, an aging infrastructure, a dwindling membership, and the organization fixates on what's wrong. Envision your mission, your dreams and hopes for what you might become, and the church begins to direct its energies in the direction imagination points. Change is inevitable, but positive change takes foresight. The trick to navigation, whether in a church or on a bike, is to visualize your future and then trust that forward-looking impulse. My riding course taught me that staying loose on the seat with a relaxed grip on the handlebars is the surest way to avoid unpleasant bumps and mishaps. They are both inherently risky endeavors, faith and cycling, but they also promise adventure, learning new skills, and discovering unexplored territory. The occasional tumble is expected. The point is to climb back on the saddle, stay safe, and above all, have fun. Just remember to lean into the curves, and you will keep the rubber side down. Now, I'm going to add a postscript here. When I was a on-track race official at racetrack, sports car races in like Laguna Seca, Sears Point, what we used to say to drivers is, keep the shiny side up. And so I'm going to say to all of you, keep the shiny side up. I'll read the offering words. Each week we take up a collection to support the work of this church and our partners in the community. We do this because just as we all grow from our participation in this community, we all give back through our time, our talent, and our treasure. As the song plays, the ushers will pass the offering plates. You can also give by texting UCL Lincoln and the amount 73256. That's UC Lincoln and the amount to 73256. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Good morning, Lincoln. It is wonderful to be here with you today. My name is Reverend A.J. Galazin. My pronouns are he and his, and I'm your interim minister. Wherever you are on your spiritual, ethical, or questioning journey, you are welcome here. Each Sunday, our conversation continues. I never know what I'm going to say until I've listened to you, learned from you, and conversed with you. And sometimes I even converse with myself. Do you ever do that?
Yes.
It's fun, but it's more fun to converse with you. Last week I spoke about the spiritual practice of repentance, of apologizing and asking for forgiveness. What I thought about afterwards is that forgiveness is not absolute. It may be tenuous. It depends on our continued compliance. Forgiveness is not something we receive once and then forget about. For it to stick, we need to remember what we have done and return again, and understand how lucky we are to get another chance. Next Sunday, we will honor the Feast of All Souls, returning again to remember those we have loved and lost. So I invite you to bring photographs and mementos of your loved ones for our table of memory. And if you are so moved, to speak a name and a brief reflection at the service of someone that you are still carrying with you in your heart. It's one of my favorite services of the year, and I hope you will join us. Here is a passage from Your First 100 Years History volume by Margaret R. Seymour. Quote, "It is quite probable that the Unitarian Church of Lincoln, Nebraska would not have existed, certainly would not be celebrating its 100th anniversary without the assistance of the national organization. At the time All Souls Universalist Society was dissolved and All Souls Unitarian Church was organized, negotiations were opened with the American Unitarian Association, and arrangements were made to remove the difficulties that had crushed the Universalist Society, and the foundation laid for a successful church. The American Unitarian Society loaned the Lincoln Church $5,000, interest-free, and arranged for a loan from the Community Church of New York City, from which the Lincoln Church was later released," close quote. Now, there are several interesting things in this passage, but I'm most curious about this phrase, the difficulties that had crushed the Universalist Society. Crushed is a violent word. I haven't read the whole book yet, but thank you, Judy, for pointing me to it. I can guess the culprit may be money. The church ran out of funds. They lost support of the people and folded. But from those ashes and a few friendly loans, they were born again. They returned again. They returned to the home of their soul. Now, some people return to church religiously twice a year at Christmas and Easter, and they may get really good at practicing those holidays, but the rest of the liturgical year may atrophy. They may start believing there's nothing else going on here. Their spirits may start to crumble. They say that Rome was not built in a day. And the deeper we look, the more evidence we find. The Emperor Constantine commissioned that a great basilica be built on the Vatican Hill, where St. Peter was traditionally thought to be crucified and buried. And that church stood for more than 1,000 years before crumbling apart, being torn down and replaced by the current basilica with Michelangelo's famous dome. And it wasn't until the 20th century that an ancient cemetery and a Roman circus, a track for racing horses, was rediscovered underneath St. Peter's. People have been returning to that place for centuries, building and rebuilding, racing, gambling, praying, venerating, and burying. What's buried under your sacred ground? Are we just spiritual tourists, eavesdropping among the philosophers, paying homage to the past? Or do we each have a new revelation that we are called to contribute? Speak up, people. This is your church. This is your conversation. Now, I divide the conversation partners into two groups: the builders, or the founders, and the maintainers, or the inheritors. The builders are inspired and charismatic. They propose great things and get things done. They make investments in the future by dreaming and reaching beyond their means. They are at the forefront of the parade that many others will follow. The maintainers appreciate the gifts and sacrifices of the builders and do their best to keep up appearances and keep mechanicals in good order. The maintainers may not be as enthusiastic as the builders, but they realize the importance of guarding against damage and neglect. Maintainers are realistic and creative people who want to live within their means. And maintainers keep marching even when the earth shakes and cracks appear in the foundation. Now, I used to think that the builders had the tougher job. They have to do comprehensive planning, heavy lifting, fundraising, and coordinating when nothing is there. All the maintainers have to do is keep things nice and clean, paint the walls, fix the roof, and patch the leaky pipes. But now I'm not so sure. The builders may actually have an easier time. They already have vision and energy. They know what they want and they're gonna get it. Nothing will stop their momentum. They are proud to accomplish great things. The maintainers, the sustainers, the inheritors may have the more difficult job, working with scarce resources and yet respectful of the builder's designs. The maintainers need to make tough decisions to repair or to remove, to replace or to renovate, to rebuild or to retrofit. At our transition town hall last weekend, many of you came together to learn about the importance of this interim time, to share your hopes and dreams, your fears and doubts, and remember some highlights in your oral history of this beloved community. Some insights from our discussion are posted on the windows of the gallery right outside this sanctuary. Please take a look on your way out this morning and feel free to contact me with your thoughts as well. Because in your words, I hear the echoes of the builders, the maintainers, and the stories of those who love this church very deeply. Some of you have been returning here for decades. I believe every community needs both builders and maintainers. They're of equal stature, exterior and interior, heart and soul. Transition time is about both building and maintaining. And you know I'm speaking about more than just bricks and mortar. This is a time to evaluate all your systems, structures, and staffing. Some things may be fine, maintained just the way they are. Other things may need to be rebuilt, utilizing the latest materials and techniques. Still others may be buried under years of disuse and need to be rediscovered, rehabilitated, or left to rest in peace. Last Sunday, you commissioned the transition team to share their insight, their knowledge, and their organizational skills to meet with me monthly as we encourage everyone here to find their own place in this work. The transition team will be reaching out to you. They are here to help the board prioritize what is most important. We already know we will not be able to accomplish everything we want, because this time will pass quickly, and some things will invariably left undone. So this is a time for hopes and dreams, fears and doubts, and writing the next chapter in your shared history. Your assignment this week, should you choose to accept it, is to ask yourself, what is your calling? Are you a builder, a maintainer, a founder, an inheritor? How do your special skills meet the deep needs of this place? Because belonging isn't just about being welcomed in. Belonging means finding your own task and helping build and rebuild this beloved community. Blessed be, may it be so, and amen. Will you rise now in body or spirit for our closing song, one of my favorite hymns, number 128, For All That Is Our Life.
Sing our thanks and praise for all
to build the common good and make our own days glad. Our benediction this morning comes from Arthur Graham. Each of us is an artist whose task it is to shape life into some semblance of the pattern we dream about. The molding is not of self alone, but of a shared tomorrow and times that we will never see. So let us be about our task. These materials are very precious and perishable. Go now in peace.